Hey everyone, Devious Hostile here, doing a Battlefield 4 video. It's a guide for the DMRs, or marksmanship rifles, from Battlefield 4. I am currently ranked number 1 in the world for the DMRs and marksmanship rifles. I've been using them almost exclusively since release of Battlefield 4. I use them extremely heavily in beta. And overall, they're my favorite weapon systems to use. I really like DICE's additions to the DMR weapon class in Battlefield 4. In Battlefield 3, we only had the Mark 11 and the M39 EMR. Now we have a large variety of weapons to use, and they all have their own kind of niche. I will not be covering all of the DMRs. I will be covering what I feel are the top 4 DMRs, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and what attachments I use on each of them. For the weapon systems themselves, the SKS, the M39 EMR, the ACE-53 SV, and the SCAR H SV are the top 4 DMRs that DICE has released for their own reasons. Many people have probably seen the SKS running around in their online matches, and there's a reason for it. The SKS has an incredible rate of fire. The rate of fire for the SKS is what makes it a really good close quarters to medium range DMR. It's very versatile. The biggest downfall that you find with the SKS DMR is the fact that its damage is lower than the rest of the DMRs, which is why my second and my generally favorite choice for close to mid-range combat DMRs is the ACE-53 SV. It has a slightly lower rate of fire than the SKS. However, its accuracy and damage is higher, as well as a slightly lower hipfire accuracy for the ACE-53 over the SKS. So, that being said, I use, for both of these weapons, in close quarters and mid-range combat, I use the Coyote Red Dot, as well as a laser sight attachment. I like the green laser just because it kind of gives me a good contrast between the red dot and the green laser, as well as you can see the green laser through explosions and thermite grenades. I use either the stubby grip or I use an angled grip on both of these weapons, and for a muzzle attachment I use the muzzle brake. Occasionally I will use a suppressor, but I generally only use suppressors if I'm doing tactical movement with a full squad of DVS on a server, or using it on TDM, because being able to not show up on the map when you come up behind a bunch of people is very nice. Kill cam, however, kind of defeats that purpose, but it gives you a couple of clean kills before people come looking for you. And like I said, I use this one primarily for close to mid-range. They do have some long-range capability, and their low recoil with good rate of fire allows them to be really effective against other snipers. However, they're not my preferred for medium or long range. The next DMR I will talk about is the M39 EMR. Some people might know it as the M14 ERB, which is, EBR, which is what it is in real life. It's a 7.62 squad designated marksman rifle in the active duty military. That being said, the M39 EMR has a great rate of fire and exceedingly good accuracy and great damage. This EMR is my favorite for medium to long range but I prefer it mostly for long-range fights. I generally will use the JGM 4x optic with it, a angled foregrip, the muzzle brake again, and a laser sight, or occasionally canted iron sights depending on the map. It does have a really good rate of fire, and it is my favorite weapon to use on a very sniper heavy map because its damage and accuracy combo very well together and give you a decent ability to out snipe snipers. From there, I go into the Scar HSV, which is my all-around favorite DMR currently. It's actually what's being showcased in this gameplay footage that's going on in the background. The Scar HSV has a great damage output, good solid rate of fire, and good hip fire and long-range accuracy. Its downfalls are a slower rate of fire, and I find during suppression it's harder to shoot than the other DMRs. Many people using it though, especially when switching over from automatic weapons variants, its Scar H assault rifle component is very much the same gun. There are some slight differences that make the Scar HSV, in my idea, better. Is its single fire rate is the same as going single fire on the Scar H. Its damage is the exact same as the Scar H, but its damage drop off is 40% further. So it starts to lose bullet effectiveness at a further range than the regular Scar H, making it, in my opinion, better than the assault rifle. It still has the same magazine capacity, but it's easily usable, and once you kind of get the groove on using DMRs, it's a great all-around weapon. The attachments I use for this are muzzle brake, because its vertical muzzle jump is very high. However, with the muzzle brake, it doesn't jump a whole lot. I also use a laser sight, the angled or a stubby, and the optic is whatever situation I'm currently fighting in. Now, those are my top 4 DMRs and the reasons and what I generally use on them. Now, a little bit on the optics for the weapons. You must understand that each optic is a little bit different for each of the weapons on how that weapon performs. Like I said, the Scar feels like it has a higher issue with suppression fire with certain optics than I feel the other weapons do. But I do think it's a great all-around weapon. The FLIR and IRNV, though, can be your best friends given the right situation. The FLIR, forward-looking infrared, is a black and white grayscaled thermal optic that allows you to see regardless of the situation, except for when people use thermal grenades. It does mess up its vision, which can impair you in close quarter situations. I also don't like it for close quarters because the 2x magnification, if you're ADSing in close quarters, can skew your target acquisition. If you get really good with it, it's something that I suggest using. But if you can't quite use the 2x in close quarter situations, you have the IRNV. So in dark areas, specifically certain places in Zavid or in the meat locker, the 1x IRNV scope, which helps highlight enemies, is a great optic to use. But again, thermal grenades and flares can mess with the optic. Flashlights also looking directly at you can as well. I have noticed that the normal flashlight is more blinding to these optics than the tack light does. Barrel attachments, the only ones I would ever suggest using are the muzzle brake and the suppressor, depending on what your needs are. Again, on TDM, I highly suggest suppressors. It helps you kind of sneak around and get in a couple of good kills from range before people start looking for you. Remember, however, to compensate for bullet drop. For underbarrel attachments, really the only two that I feel that you can actually use are the angled grip and the stubby, and their variants that you gain through battle packs. That being said, for your optic, choose your optic for your situation. If you have a situation where you're going long range, pick a long range optic. Don't try and snipe with the coyote. Don't limit yourself just because you think you may come into some close quarters combat. Take the right optic to the fight. If you have to change out every time you die because you've pushed to a different area during a fight and that's where it's happening, then do so. Now, for slight tips on the DMR, something to remember with the DMR is that a lot of times the bullets feel like they're not going exactly where you're aiming. That is what happens when you are suppressed. Learn to adjust for it. Aiming center mass with the DMR is better than always aiming for the head. Another tip I would give you is DMRs, much like sniper rifles, have the ability to be zeroed. Because they have the ability to be zeroed, you can use it to your advantage. If you're in close quarters, and by close quarters I mean 50 meters and under combat, hit the V key by default to zero your weapon to 200 meters. Every time you come up to an enemy, aim solely at their chest, and you're almost always guaranteed either a chest or a headshot with it zeroed at 200 meters. If you're rocking it on the recon class, you can zero your weapon and outsnipe many snipers with the use of a rangefinder on your PLD. What you see me playing here is support with using the DMR. I use Claymore and ammo on my support class when I'm playing in TDM or close quarters combat, and I use the ammo box and C4 on conquest maps with vehicles. I think the DMRs are a very underrated weapon. I have used them very, very effectively throughout my gameplay. I'm not saying I'm an excellent player. I have lots of issues with positioning and being too aggressive. But with the DMR, you can be very versatile in your group. If you are playing with a sniper, perhaps, I like running support because I can give us both ammo and I'm accurate enough at distance that I can sit there and snipe as well while maintaining our sniper position with ammo. Another thing I like to do is run a medic, running the first aid box and the defibs, and running around with the DMR close quarters setup like the Ace 5.3 SV or the SKS with the Coyote one by sight and running in close quarters combat. Because the weapon requires you to only hit somebody 3 times at close quarters and sometimes only 2, depending on the weapon variant you're using, you can easily beat many people with assault rifles. Certain assault rifles that you're going to have to watch out for, though, are the FAMAS and the Ace 2.1. When coming up against guys with shotguns, the best thing you can do is back up and strafe left or right while hip firing as fast as possible. That being said, guys, remember it's a single fire weapon. Use it as such. Try and get as high of an accuracy rating for each of the guns as you can, because what you can do then is learn how many rounds you need to shoot at somebody before you, on average, will kill someone. Currently, my accuracy rate with the SCAR is 27.89%, so I know that me personally, I need to shoot 6 rounds in the direction of somebody before I change targets. So I will pop off those 6 rounds in the direction of somebody, and if they aren't already dead, obviously I keep plugging away, but on average I plug out those 4 to 6 rounds, and I'm able to switch targets with a kill on one target and already starting on my next. The DMR has a very high learning curve, so I will say this, be patient. The early DMRs, I think, are kind of garbage. The RFB is very difficult to use. It has a high recoil, low accuracy, and terrible hip fire rate. I will say once you unlock the Mark 11, you can switch over to that and do a little bit better. But soon after unlocking the Mark 11, you'll be able to unlock the SKS and be able to have a great close quarters weapon. And like most people, you can just go into a 1,000 ticket team deathmatch and go unlock everything for that weapon and unlocking most of your other DMRs. That being said, join us on the DVS gaming servers. You can search us in the search window as a ranked and official server with the tag DVS. We have 2 servers, one located in San Jose, one located in New York. We have a Conquest 24/7 running currently and a Conquest Locker running, which is actually what you're seeing right now. Check us out at dvsgaming.org. And be sure to subscribe to my page and follow me on Twitter. If you have anything you would like me to discuss about these DMRs, ask me in the comments and I will try and respond to them as fast as possible. Thank you for watching. It's DVS Hostile. Come play some games with us, guys.